beautiful family. How are you all doing today? Good to be here with you all, and thank you for being here, part of this stream. This kind of last minute impromptu, even though it had been stewing at the back of my consciousness for quite some time, and with Bridget, been going back and forth with Bridget about this for some time now. We dropped some hints that we were going to do this, but about a week and a half ago, I was like, it's time, and let's go ahead and create this. So thank you all for being a part of what I feel is a milestone experience for the next 3 days, and not just informational, but extremely impactful and hopefully healing for the collective cosmos. So the way we're going to do this is today, of course, is Reptilians good, bad, and neutral. And for just a little side disclaimer first before we get into everything, when I sent out the email, the original email, the two registration pages for this one and for the last one did not work. So if you did not get to register for the last one, which is Reptilians and the Shadow Work, go back to the email and sign up there, because if you haven't got an email for it, that means you didn't sign up for it. So today we're doing Reptilians good, bad, and neutral. And the way we've structured this is the reason why I created this in the first place, just to give you a little bit of my story, my journey. And that's how we're going to do every day. We're going to start with an introduction, 5 to 10 minutes of just me speaking about why we're even here having this conversation. And then we're going to get into bringing on our guests, give them as much time as they need, to really go deep into the topic. And afterwards, if we feel we want to go deeper into it, we'll have a conversation and talk about it. And since we got a good amount of people, tomorrow's show, we have over 400 people signed up for the StreamYard room. So go ahead and ask questions, interact. We'll pull them up on screen here, and let's have this more of an exchange. And I just want to see who's in the chat right now, because we've got a lot of people. I heard you said there's feedback on the audio, so just let me know if my audio is coming in clean. Welcome to all of you. All right. So the journey of realizing duality in the cosmos, this is kind of the bottom line and the simplification of why we're here right now and why we're having this conversation. I woke up to my introduction to waking up, very short summary on that, was 2001, and it was finding the Sumerian scriptures and finding out about the Anunnaki. And then finding about the Anunnaki took me into looking at the scriptures and images of serpents representing advanced quantum physics, and hearing these people translating this information to, oh, this serpent with this DNA spiral coming outside of it, with a giant on one side and a little human baby on the other side, ancient scriptures, was some sort of genetic manipulation, some sort of genetic mutation. So I was getting into the ancient history, the quantum physics component, and the spirituality of it, all vibration and frequency. And the first story, of course, you've all probably heard the Anunnaki story, is these guys came down here and they enslaved us, right? And they created a slave race, and we became that. And then we ended up carrying out their duties on Earth so that they could get and mine gold, right? As that evolved, the story evolved, and we realized that there's parts of the Sumerian scriptures that are completely not translated, and there's parts that are completely missing. And the slave race component, even though there was something to maybe that there was a faction of the Anunnaki that really was about carrying control, but the whole, like, we were slaves to do these tasks is not an actual literal translation, and that's actually up for speculation. And unless you go deeper into the original people from the 1800s that were deciphering, and which I have on my Amazon read list, but it's too big, I haven't even got to it yet. But unless you go into the original stuff and start doing the research for yourself and diving into it, you really won't get a big picture of what's happening. So that whole component, for years, I thought that there were mostly benevolent beings in the universe, because higher dimensional, and that there were some negative entities, but namely, they were maybe connected to some reptilians, right? And even some people have depicted, and even ancient scriptures have depicted Anunnaki as reptilians, right? So as I've been evolving in my awareness, I'm realizing that there's something that happened on the planet, okay? And it seems that there was a collective trauma that was experienced connected to some sort of serpent energy, right? And it's been manifested in our scriptures. I mean, case in point, let's go into the Old Testament in the Garden of Eden and the serpent, right? It's been manifested in a lot of our scriptures across the world. And even though we see in the Eastern philosophy, we see a lot of benevolent serpent beings, there's actually stories of negative serpent beings too. They have the duality in there. Even dragons, right? Positive and the negative. Since I spoke about the dragons, let me tell you that the dragon regression that Bridget gave me is the reason why I wanted to do this in the first place. Because when I did the regression, and actually, since I didn't prepare my PowerPoint, I will show you tomorrow. I'll show you the 3 images that I generated using AI imagery of the reptilian beings that I saw that were myself. And I started seeing that, wait a second, all these 3 reptilian beings, one was a duck face with a reptilian body. One was a straight up like royal looking. Actually, the thumbnail of this image is that image of that reptilian. That's like me in one of my incarnations. And then I forget the last one. I'll remember it when I look at the presentation tomorrow. But none of them were negative. And I started realizing that the dragon races had a DNA, a genetic connection to all serpentine beings in the galaxy, and humans as ourselves. We're not like maybe connected to them. We don't just have the reptilian brain. We have literal DNA, and we even have soul incarnations of reptilians in our body. It's so diverse and diluted, the experience that we're having with these beings, that for us to cast a judgment on one group of beings maybe is simplifying it a little too much. And maybe there's something there that's a deeper trauma that we're not addressing because of that innate fear. And it's coming out through all our texts. So from my research, I realized that some of these stories, ancient stories, aren't really of reptilian beings. That, from what I believe, a lot of them are, but some of them aren't. But why do we depict that person, that individual, that ET race as a serpent? Because there was some sort of other collective trauma around a serpent, and it almost became like a synonym for something bad. So when something happened to you, they're like a weasel or a snake, you know. So even the story of the Garden of Eden, this like the Prism of Lyra, I love that book, and there's other people that speak about that too. Lisa Royale will be on a Lyra conference, and they speak about these like basically 2 factions of extraterrestrial races, and neither of them were really reptilian. But when one of them did something that the other one didn't agree upon, basically that archetype, right? This is just one story. So many people have translated it in different ways. That archetype of the snake was imposed on them. So whether it was a real reptilian or whether it was some sort of being or something that was imposed this view of a reptilian entity, goes to show that there is something there that we need to address. So the reason why today we're doing reptilians good, bad, and neutral is because from that regression, even Bridget had said it back to me, only like 5% of these beings are negative, and the ones that are polarized as negative happen to be the ones that want to interfere with free will, or maybe lower astral entities that can interact on our plane. The higher dimensional beings, they know that everything happens the way it should happen. They know that we came here for amnesia and that we need to go to the darkness in order to wake up to the light. They may have some compassion in their heart for the experiences that we're going through, but they also know that this is what we need to go through in order to wake up to a greater understanding of who we are and our place in the cosmos. So what do? The prime directive, the law of non-interference, right? Why interact and mess with this experience here? Because who knows what repercussions it could have, right? So we are having the experiences we have had a lot of. We've been supported by benevolence for sure, but the experiences that we've had a lot of are actually beings that can interact with this dimension or have an agenda that they want to impose upon us. And because of that, we have now decided that this group or race is like this. Not everybody, and I think a lot of people on here, of course, aren't. But even when I posted about this and I asked for people's, feedback, and what do you think about the reptilians? And I had some posts that were extremely just polarized and very angry. And if you feel that the reptilians have created this world, that they have some sort of agenda, that they are part of the cabal, and then you see the atrocities in the world and the craziness, it makes sense that you're going to be angry, because human nature is to find someone to really blame for the pain that we see in the world and around us. And if we're feeling pain and we think the system, the matrix, is perpetuating that, we're going to be upset at it, right? But this is what I want to do with these 3 shows. Can we peel back those layers a little deeper? Can we get down to looking at everything as a reflection of us? And that's the last one, reptilians and the shadow work. That one's deep right there. And it's like, what does this external reflection mean for us? And are they supporting some sort of experience for us? But then how do we see that and still hold that energy accountable for what it's done? Rather than being complacent, rather than being like, oh, okay, it's all happened for a reason. I used to hear that all the time. I used to be that new ager that you would say that all the time. My friends would get really upset. They're like, you're late. I'm like, well, everything happens in divine timing. so this is the conversation we're going to have today, and we have some amazing guests. I have invited a couple of more people to join us. Hopefully in the next couple of days we'll have or by the last day at least, we'll have 1 or 2 other people that are also, I would say, experts in this conversation as well. So we're going to get into our first guest in just a moment. I just want to look at my notes, make sure I covered everything as intro. All right. So our first guest today is Lanette, and she is a good friend of mine. We connected a couple of years ago. And Lanette, when you come on, I'd love for you to do a little intro about you and your journey. But when I connected with Lanette, she had a connection to Orion, and she still does. And she is basically, I would say, an incarnated soul from Orion. And the conversations that I was having with her were conversations. I've been in this world for like, I mean, this was like 2 years ago we connected, and I've been in this world for like 22 years. And I'd heard a lot of things about Orion, but not too many people go really deep on that subject and that topic, which is why tomorrow she's going to go deeper onto the scars of Orion and what actually went down there. And the information I was receiving from her after being in this for so long and hearing like so many stories was completely new information. And also, like, we're trying not to, guys, we're trying not to go too deep into topics that are tomorrow and the next day, but I'll just say um, this about Orion, that there's also a collective trauma over there that we have taken upon us. So when you go into, say, like, something happens in some planetary system, right? And then you travel to Earth, and now millions of years have passed, but your soul is incarnated over and over and over again with a collective memory of what happened millions of years ago. And you're here on Earth working out an issue that happened millions of years ago, and having belief systems and traumas and judgments over the beings and the system when they've literally evolved millions of years, generations have passed, and they're in harmony right now. And I was getting a lot of that information from her about how Orion is now and what's going on there. And I would say that the same thing goes with ET races. Would you base us right now, right? Say that the Roman Empire conquered even more of the planet, and they were going around committing atrocities, killing whoever they called a barbarian, right? And then an ET saw that, and then 2,000 years pass, and then they come down to Earth and say, "Oh, hell no, we're not going down to Earth. Did you see what they did to this country back in 2,000 years ago?" Right? So we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't judge the people of now. Some people do, I guess. People of now based on what we did 2, 3, 4,000 years ago. So why are we casting judgment from things that happened probably millions of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago? Isn't it possible that if we're evolving, that other beings evolve too? And aren't we all heading back to source in some level? And aren't many wounds that we experience just a wound from disconnection from source and not feeling the love? And maybe after millions of years of incarnations, these beings can get back to it, right? So a lot of that information, I was getting and really enjoying having conversations with Lanette. So everybody, please join me in welcoming Lanette. Hey there.
Hey Neil,
Good to
how
see
are
you.
you? It's good to see
Doing
you.
good.
Yeah, I was listening carefully. Here is 3 a.m. in the morning, so I'm Italian, for those who didn't know, and I'm very, very um, emotional right now because it's a topic close to my heart, and I will try to not go too deep in the Orion stuff of tomorrow. It it's very difficult for me because a lot of downloads I have, it's a direct memory. So some things are intertwined, are linked, but I have direct memory with some uh, of these reptilian entities, good entity, and I've speak about with Neil. I think in 2022 on Instagram. We were speaking about something, and then I just came out with these memories, with these downloads, and we we said, okay, one day we should talk about this and the reptilian queens, etc. But I want to go deep into that because there is some misconception and some ignorance nowadays. Um, and sorry for my English. I don't know if you understand me clearly. Sometimes I can be very messy because, as I said, it's at 3 a.m. in the morning. So forgive me. Yeah, it's not my mother tongue. So I hope you will understand me well. The first things that came into my mind when I speak with Neil about that was these memories and this story I've been told by some in some encounter. I I have to did a little bit introduction. I'm from the Orion Belt. I came from the central star in the Orion Belt, Alnilam, and I have awake since I think 11 years. So I started my awakening at 16 years old. Now I am 29, and I have been through a lot of encounters, like many of us, as a star seeds. But my memories of Orion are I've been speak about it in some video we did with Neil in Orion beings from the belt. I don't remember, or in Ultimate Star Beings. And if you are curious, you can check it out. But basically, there I speak about my my star family. My identity has my mainly connection with my star people, and starting from that, I became to have other downloads and other memories, as happens to many of us. And one of my first memory when I wasn't fully awake was this encounter with these reptilian queens that was very huge, like a dinosaur. It was I am trying to describe her in English. The most closer I can get to describe these beings that came from Orion, from the star Scythe. Okay, in the past I've speak about the Orion Belt constellation and these humanoid mammals beings I came from. But today I want to add this little piece of memories that Neil thought it would be interesting to add to the puzzle, and maybe can be helpful for someone of you to understand what's happened, and can give you other point of view about these reptiles. My first encounters with them, or I better say my first memory that I can recollect with them in my awakening was these huge beings, these female Orion queens, very angry, very aggressive, and I just have this dream. every night this was old memory. And when you are in your awakening, you know, you think, okay, negative, this is bad things, she was maybe tried to kill me, she was an enemy. But later in the year, when I grew up, I start to be more ready, and my star family starting to tell me some pieces of the story as long as I remember more and more. So they starting to say, to explain to me what's happened in the war. I have memory recollection of the Orion War that I don't speak about too much today, but I have this sense of I don't know, to know these beings, these female beings, reptile. And I was feeling different feelings. I don't know. I was divided by some sense of respect. I respect her, and at the same time, I was terrified because she was giant, like as I said, sauroids, giant dinosaurs. It looked like carnivore plants almost. Sorry, my messy introduction, but I'm a little bit rusty in English, so I hope while we speak to get more and more confident. So these beings came from the star Scythe, and the first things I remember that it was this female queen tried to kill me. So I have this conflict feeling. I have these feelings of conflicts, and I didn't understand what happens. And later in the year, I have clear memories. I grow up. I start to understand the, you know, to divide from confliction, ego, and stuff. And while I was in the full of awakening, I have this full integration and contact, a benevolent contact with her. And it was a moment when I need more strength, and I started to integrate serpentine, you know, kundalini information, dragon totem. It happened to, in my dream, I always saw a red dragon, and then this kind of serpentine reptile energy came to me and guides me in a difficult way. And Orion, my star people, always said to me, we introduce them to you because you need to integrate this calm, quiet energy, this cold energy, because Orion is more like fire, and Orion beings from the belt are very emotional, very empathic, and works on a heart level and on the solar plexus. And I was in the awakening, so my energy was exploding. And at that time, I was starting to understand more and more. So they, how can I say in English? They decide to introduce me to these beings. They think I was ready, and they explained to me that the reptile energy, the serpentine energy, is a sacred energy too. And I always felt no different, I never create labels or stuff with, like church teach us, you know, to have fear for a snake. I've never been like that. I always feel attracted by any kind of animal. So I feel this kind of energy, reptile, serpentine energy, came to me in a moment where I needed the most. But later I discovered that I already been in contact with this energy, and this is like old friends try to help me to integrate a certain lesson. So that was the start of my contact with these kind of serpentine beings. And my memories is like they from my star family, they thought I was ready, so they start to give me access to more memories, because sometimes when you are in the awakening, when you are very young, a teenage, they try to block some painful memories, or because I was an explosion of downloads and channelings. If you want to know more about this story, I speak about it in the last event conference with Portal to Ascension, Orion beings. So this is another story, but it's linked to the topic of today, because in that moment of my awakening, I started to come in contact with these beings. So she starting to come in my dreams, and I didn't understand. I was like, oh my God, this is the huge dinosaur trying to kill me in my memories. Why she is in my dreams? Maybe I'm in a mission, I'm in an astral, I don't know, I'm going to visit some kind of lower dimension, I don't know. And then I understood that I was in the astral plane, and she was an old friend that in the past in Orion we have she never been malevolent beings. She always been kind of aggressive, and I started to understand reptile minds. Not the. I wanted to make clear that to. I want to specify that this is not the kind of story of reptilian, draconian, of David Icke story. This is another kind of beings that came from Orion. These kind of serpentine beings I've met. So I wanted to give you my piece of story. There are many other beings, but this is the kind of entity I've come in contact with, and I bring this today to you in order to help you to understand that there are more in these beautiful creatures. So she started to show in my dreams, and I keep having downloads and remembrance of her. And I still used to come in the astral, and sometimes on encounters or ships or council, I have interaction with different beings. So one night I interacted with her, and she downloaded me these memories. So she transmitted to me all she wanted to say, and she wanted to say like, hi, do you remember about me? And this entity communicate in another level. It was very wise energy, very calm, not the aggressive beings I remember in my past. And she was huge. I don't know how to describe it, but like a dinosaur is the best example I can give you. And it's more like a serpentine body, but have this huge head with a sort of crown. I don't know. I'm preparing this for tomorrow because my internet wasn't working well. So I have created I recreate the image in a digital way, so you can have an idea of her aspect. Her name, it came to my mind at the first encounter, was Xartia. And I don't know if I pronounce it right, but it was like Xartia. And she was trying to give me a piece of memory that I needed to integrate in order to understand what's happening in Orion. I'm trying to find a way to say this without spoiler the topic of tomorrow at the Orion scar, but basically what she tried to
You can say it, and because you have so
what?
much information, I said if you want to share it, go ahead, because I'm realizing you have so much information that even if
Yeah,
you share
I
some
don't know
more, we
how
can go
to
for some
link
tomorrow.
the dot. Thank you, Tom. So she showed me with a the purpose of our encounter. It was all prepared by my star family. So they thought I was ready for this kind of a very strong impact and very strong energy. And the day before this encounter, I was with high fever because the amount of downloads she gave to me was so heavy and so full of so emotional that I was in shock for, I think, I lay in bed for, I think, 2 days. Um, and the things she transferred to me was like a direct downloads of what's happened to her people, and that she communicates to me, and she says that she was the queen of that place. Scythe, the star Scythe. She showed me this beautiful jungle, kind of green gems, hidden gems in Orion, and she told me that she never used words, but I knew the concept. She used the images and symbols to make me understand, and so I perceived that she was very wise and fierce, fear beings. So she was strong, she was calm, and the only purpose of this queen was to protect her planets. So the planets around Scythe. And since she was existing, nobody can enter in those planets, and those planets are perfectly safe and perfectly with nature, with pureness. Nobody with pollution, nothing like we human are doing on Earth, like pollution and crazy stuff. All natural or pure, like Eden, I don't know, a paradise, green paradise with waters. And she shows me these images, and her like team, her system, her family was the system inside. It's ruled by a queen, and then there are guards males, warrior males that are they live in pack. I don't know if this is the right term, but they live in groups and they're very social. They are like, the male are little smaller than the queen. The queen is huge like a dinosaur. The female are big, but the male are like the velociraptor. I don't know, the only way I can describe it is like they look alike a velociraptor. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Jurassic Park, but they are almost with these kind of shape. I can describe it like that. Very different from the queen. Their system is made by female matriarchal system, as many other stars in Orion, where there is queens. And the queens, which is the purpose of having a queens, is not for ego, is not like here on Earth. It's because in Orion system, there is this huge nebula, Orion Nebula, called M42. And according to science, and scientists claims that, and officially discovered that in Orion Nebula M42, there is a particular light called circular polarized light that is responsible for the life, the creation of life, the orientation of the molecules left or right, and this builds the structure of life. So the scientists look for this kind of light, circular polarized light, in all the universe, and they only find it in M42, the ability to create life, and all the light spectrum existed. So from ultraviolet to infrared and other, they call it chemical industry, biochemical industry, because this sacred place in Orion is like a nursery for the star. So it's the place the stars are born. And according to science, in this universe at least, our stars are born geographically, physically in the womb of the M42 Orion Nebula. So I have to say this because in order to understand the purpose of queens, the Orion Nebula holds the ability to create, and now are creating 111,000, like something like that, 111,000 suns like our sun, and future baby planets, and future stars and future suns, thousand and thousand of suns. So can you imagine this power of creation, this cosmic egg that create and recreate life? So what is the purpose of queens in Orion? The queens are like happened for bees. They born with a diversity, a physical diversity that make them able to hold certain codes and DNA and all this information and downloads that are transmitted constantly for the whole lifespan of a queen, that can be even eternal, can last forever. Sometimes, of course, it's not. It's very rare that someone wants to live this longer. Sometimes the soul decide to rest and give the space to another queen. So the queen, for her lifetime in all the Orion system, it works like that. There is this divine feminine energy that rules, like this energy of the sacred womb of M42, this download, this creation, downloads of future planets, beings, DNA, stars, suns are constantly linked and direct and transmitted to the DNA of queens. So what is the purpose? The purpose is that, and is regulated by the source, that if in case of a destruction, there is these beings that is able to hide and keep safe this sacred cosmic egg. This happens not only for reptilians. There is humanoid queens that have the same purpose. In Orion Belt, for example, we have humanoids, and there are queens that have the same purpose as Xartia. So Xartia was one of the Orion queens, and every queen is made and it's perfect for defend and protect her planet. So the queen cannot access to these downloads for her own will. She can only assess for a real danger when a planet is been destroyed. So the source give like this nebula decide with impulse when a queen can assess and can take this power to recreate future planets and have the ability. So they can be, for what I'm described to you, these reptiles, for example, they can seem very primitive, but they are very advanced. They don't need technology. It's obsolete for them. They never use it, and they don't use it. They use astral to communicate with other leaders, to communicate with other beings, just because if there are some kind of useful communication, they directly go in the astral or manifest and teleportate to communicate with other leaders or other councils. But unless it's very important, they never leave their planet. So it's what concern the reptile queen. So these kind of stars in Orion that have reptiles are Bellatrix and Scythe. Bellatrix in the ancient story and legends are a warrior woman's stars. So there are warrior in the legend that came from Bellatrix. So it's funny because there is always this feminine aspect that came back in Orion. So I've met these beings from Scythe. Xartia, and in her download. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow. I'm rusty. It's a lot that I don't speak English.
No,
And
you're good. You're good. Marinette, share for maybe another 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll go deeper tomorrow on the Ryan stuff. Okay.
yeah. No, the Xartia downloads she gave to me is that her system works with this matriarchal system. So there is the queen, there are males who are guardians, but they are protector for the information the queen holds, and the queen can fecundate the egg of her own, so she can reproduce of her own and can decide which eggs will be the future daughters, and she transmits the information to the daughters. To make it short, long story short, because I haven't time, these queens are the start of what's happening in Orion. So they receive a huge attack from beings came from outside our universe, and these beings possessed some of very close guardians of these queens. And so what I mean is that there are not physical beings that came from outside this universe, and this is the beginning of the Orion War. So the evil sometimes people see in these have a deep scars, and Xartia is one of the queens who told me her part of the story, where some beings came from outside, come to steal some information because of the nebula capacity of creation and recreate planets. So these fallen parasite entities came to stolen from the queen, but because the queen is very dangerous, it's almost impossible to get close. Beings like that, it's like a huge dinosaur and have a lot of protection. And not only every planet's benevolent star beings protect the queens in every star system, not only in Orion, because they know that the queens hold these secret codes of cosmic eggs, of recreation in case of destruction. So these entity came from outside, violate the sacred space of this star, of this place in Scythe, and abduct, kidnap the daughter of Xardia, the daughter of queens, who share with her the same DNA, even if in a dormant way. So they are not able to access it yet because they are very young. But what happens is that from that horrible fact, all happens. So that is the beginning of the war in Orion. One of the many attacks in Orion came from outside. So this was important to me, just because we speak about it tomorrow, but just because it's important to understand that these reptiles can seem hostile, but in fact they have their, like a lioness, they have their aggressivity just because they need to protect something, or they live in a pure way like animal, but they don't harm anyone. They don't go and destruct planets. They were in their own planets, having their peace, their balance. And for example, in the belt, nobody never dream or think about to go inside, because we know we can get killed, because there is a strong sense of protection from these reptiles of their territory. But it's okay, we respect that. If we want to see the planets, we go in the astral, but they protect the sacred life, and there are beauty and sacred secrets in that place. So that's just to understand one piece. Sorry for my English, really, because it's so many. It's been a lot. From
Lor- No, that
I, it's,
was, thank you so much. First of all, your English is great. I've been telling you that every time we talk for like 2 years, okay? And everybody says it's great. We heard you, we heard everything. And perfect lead up to tomorrow's conversation. And I gotta say, like, I don't know, Bridget, if I see your head nodding, but saw a lot of stuff she was saying was the things that was happening in my regression. You know, we haven't spoke about my regression yet. I think we should have another conversation.
no.
But like, I am, even though I'm speaking, I'm also speechless. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like it in my heart because a lot of what you said happened in my regression, and you just confirmed so many different things for me. You know, so thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate it. It just goes so, it's so beautiful and so deep, and I'm excited to go deeper tomorrow.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you. Okay, sleep well. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
I listen to you guys for a little bit
Okay.
until I can. Then I go to sleep. Tomorrow I
Okay.
have
Sounds
to
good.
work early, but I want to. I love to hear about other speakers, so I will be here for a little
Okay.
bit.
Stick around. All right. Love you. We'll see you soon.
Love you. Thank you.
Goodbye. All right. So we're gonna just move into our next guest. And I just want to say one thing first, and this is how we're gonna flow for all the panelists here. We'll have Rob Gauthier come on next, then we'll have Bridget Renee Holiday, and then we'll end with Vox. Vox, are you okay with that? Ending last? Because I don't know if you're prepared, but I think you're always prepared. Because after your talk, it would be amazing if you can do some soundscapes for us, some vocal sound. So Vox is going to share her experience, and if she's set up for it, I don't know if the equipment's ready. Hopefully, we can close out with that instead of doing the healing meditation. We'll have the healing frequencies today with the sound, and then tomorrow I would love for Bridget to do it, and then the following day I'll do it as well. I want to just say this before we bring on Rob. If we have this reptilian DNA in us, right, and if we are a part of that, and from so many stories I've heard, it seems that when we incarnated, some say from the prism of Lyra into this constellation, that this galaxy was already inhabited by quite a lot of not only insectoid beings but reptilian beings, serpentine beings, dragon races. And we are now seeing or realizing, I would say, the diversity of the human experience through the cosmos, right? Just to name the ones that we speak about often, but what about the ones that we don't speak about? How many incarnations and how we spread out through the universe? Could this have happened for other types of templates as well? And could the human template on Earth be a connection of almost like hybridizing these different beings that were maybe separate templates into one? And I feel like that's what we are. I feel like we're not even fully human like those other humans, that we are integrated with other races that are beyond the human experience in here, working out that stuff within ourselves. So, could there be a part of ourselves when we are scared of the serpent, the snake? When we're talking about the negativity and darkness, is there a part of ourselves, our own DNA, that we're scared of or we're not fully integrating and accepting? You know, those are kind of the questions that I've had about this and what we're exploring today. So, our next guest, I'm really excited, guys, because it's been a long time since Rob's been on PTA, and we're now reconnected. And Rob said in the chat we've known each other for 10 years, but that's actually incorrect. It's been like 12 years now. It was like 2011. And the first time I ever heard of a reptilian being positive, this is why I had to have Rob on here, because I thought they were all bad up until the time I met Rob. You know, Rob channels a reptilian being, and I went to his events. We did channel panels online. He had a channel panel event in LA that I was at as well. Bashar and a bunch of amazing channels were there, and a little plug here for Rob. He's going to be bringing back the channel panel in January of 2025 in Sedona. Hopefully, I got all that correct. And so, if you guys want to come out and check that out, I'll be there as well. So, a little bit about Rob. Rob is one of the most respected trans channels in the world. For more than a decade, he has helped thousands of individuals receive clarity on their life path and mission. His primary work is with three main guides: Ardif, Treb, Bor Yitne, and Metatron, but he has channeled hundreds of ET consciousnesses. Rob is also in-demand speaker and teacher and has been featured in many documentaries, internet shows, interviews, and books in his unique channeling abilities. And as I shared, bringing him on here because of his experience. Like the first time I ever heard of anybody channeling a reptilian, and I'm sure there's others out there, but Rob is the one that I really have, gravitated towards and received more information from. So we're going to hear today Rob's story and his journey connecting with the reptilian consciousness and the messages he's received. So let's welcome on Brother Rob. Hey, brother.
Hey, brother, it's nice to see you. And it has been a while. I'm glad we were able to
Yeah, man.
reconnect. And thank you for having me
Yeah.
on today. This is a topic, as you know, very dear to my heart.
Exactly, brother. That's why as soon as I thought of this topic, you're the first person, that I messaged about coming on board because, you've just been in this world for so long, and I'm just excited. I'm just hand it over to you. So we'll love just to hear your journey and see where you want to take us with what your experience has been with reptilians.
Sure. And how long do I have to go, brother, so I can pace myself?
Let's do around 15 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right. Well, first of all, welcome everyone, and thank you guys for being here. Reptilian energy is very dear to my heart. Now, I have a long story that could end up taking an hour to just explain. So let's explain it this way. I went through a really hard path. It was full of depression. I had a son who had severe special needs, cerebral palsy. After I found out how bad it was going to be, I got into drugs. I had a very bad addiction for about 9 years with opiates. And after I got clean, my spiritual journey started. I started doing a lot of meditation, a lot of energy towards hemisync, binaural beats, and going to spiritualism churches until I evolved to one moment in time. And this was my meeting of my first guide, Treb. Now, of course, I'm a channeler, and some people love channeling, some people don't. So I share that everything I'm going to talk about today is the same thing. I would ask you to take it like you do channeling. There are so many opposing topics, similar topics, different ideologies when it comes to the reptilian energy, history of Earth, and all of that. So maybe this will help fill out one piece of a puzzle for you, but just feel into it, take what you need, leave the rest. So my first experience with meeting Treb was an astral projected state. As I'm a trance channeler now, I learned that from going deep into meditation. The first time I met him, I had been exploring meditation and going very deep. And then one day I was very disconnected, and I felt like, hey, I need to find a way back to my center. And I was addicted to meditation. I kind of changed out one addiction for the other. I went into the deepest meditation I had, and that's where I met Treb. And Treb is a gigantic 7.5-foot reptilian human hybrid being. We call him the benevolent human reptilian hybrid. And he's gigantic, and it scared me. And I felt this horrible fear inside of me for about 2 seconds. And then all of a sudden, that fear stopped, and I felt this overwhelming sense and flow of love. So that energy was very important for me to calm myself and center myself. In the first meeting, he just said that, hey, we're connected. Our souls are connected. Our experience is connected. If you want to know more, life isn't what you think it is. The universe isn't what you think it is. The experience isn't what you think it is. But now you've achieved this. You've came to me. Now, if you want to come back, we'll talk. And I thought my brain got broken. I actually feared that I had had some kind of mental illness, or the meditation, the binaural beat, or my years of drug use. Something broke my brain, and I was convinced. But I couldn't stop meditating, and I could not let that go without finding out more. So I went back, and for 2 years, I kept going back to him in meditation every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and we talked. And he shared with me a lot of things that you guys already understand, things I had never had reference or clues for, including the universal creation, how we ourselves are part of the creative process here, souls on a journey, all those things that you guys know. I had no clue. I grew up in a Christian background. I had no idea frame of reference. So while exploring these topics that he's sharing with me, the one thing I found was Seth and Jane Roberts. And they kind of talked about some of the same things Trev was telling me, but they were telling it from a different perspective, So at the end of this 2 years, I'm like, Treb, this information that you shared with me has changed my life. I want to be able to share this information, but I'm not confident enough in my own understanding of it. Can we do what they do? Can we do what Jane does and Seth? And by that time, I had already found Daryl Anka, Bashar, Cryon, Lee Carroll. I said, can we do what these guys are doing? And he's like, yes. So I worked on it and I figured out how to channel. And the fourth or fifth time I ever channeled, I went on YouTube and I just started sharing. And it was a lot of hatred. And this was back in 2010 when I first started sharing my channeling. So 2008 was when I was connecting with them, 2010, and a lot of hatred happened. I recognized that there was a deep seed hatred for reptilian beings, but the more I put out, the more supportive people were, the more curious people were, until eventually I reached that critical mass where the channeling became so exciting for so many people. I was given the opportunity, do I do this as an actual job, as an actual path, or do I just keep doing my day job and doing this when I can? At that point, the demand for people hearing what Treb had to say was so huge, I decided to go into the channeling. Now, since I've known Treb, this is where the really exciting information comes in, because all of these reptilian things that we hear, I mean, there's a ton of substance to it, but there's also a lot of unknown, unseen, or misunderstood information. Again, like I say, I'm not competing with another person's perspective. I'm not competing with another person's idea or how they share. But the way that Treb had always shared it is that the Anunnaki beings who first came to Earth were, in fact, half reptilian beings and half Pleiadian beings. These were Pleiadian feminine beings that wanted to explore their masculine energy. So during that time, the Alpha Draconian beings, who are an ancient race who had been here longer than any living beings in the universe right now have been, I mean, beings who still exist in the body, right? Now, the dimension that they're in is all the way at the highest level, like the sixth density or seventh dimensional layer, the last place where physical bodies exist, that's where they are. And it's not physical like our physical body, but in the dimension they're in, they're physical. So these beings have been existent for longer than everyone who's still living here. These beings had genetics that these Anunnaki, or before they became Anunnaki, feminine Pleiadian beings wanted. They found a way to steal the genetic, integrate it into their body, and that was not a very good thing. The Draconian beings who are a part of this galaxy and possibly other galaxies really dislike the fact that some humanoid race took their genetics. Now, at this time, the story and my understanding from Treb that the Alpha Draconian beings came from another matrice. And the way that they describe a matrice is that it's the exact version of this universe, but it's on a different realm. So it's like a different, some people call it an alternate dimension. And these beings left their experience from where they were. And now, fortunately, now I kind of understand that. My wife channeled some with her reptilian guides that really helped me understand that. But when we take out the why they left because they needed to leave, and they came to this matrix. This matrix was something that they were good at. They didn't have any competition in the food bowl. There was no race that could bully them around, tell them what to do. So they settled. And when they settled in this galaxy, a lot of humanoids didn't like that. There wasn't a very clear archetype for higher dimensional reptilian consciousness at this time. Now, again, this predates all of the races that are existent today, even the ancient Andromedans and some of the older, really old races like Arcturian races or Andromedan races. The Alpha Draconians are just way, way more ancient than them. And that's why they call them the ancient reptilians. What they were doing at this time, before the Orion Wars even started, they were sharing their seeds. And what they did, they would find the animal archetype that was closest to reptilian, closest to their galactic archetype, and they would share their genetics with those beings. And it would be called giving the gift. And when they gave the gift to these races, then they developed their own sentience, and they developed from an animal style race to more a third or fourth density type of race, like a human or like a Yael, or one of these lower dimensional, higher than us, but lower dimensional types of Pleiadians. And that's where these reptilian hybrid races would start. So these beings were hybridized from the reptilian of their own home star system with their blueprint, and then given that genetics from the Alpha Draconians. And this happened a lot. And this even happened on Earth with the dinosaurs. And that's how you get the Earth reptilians, which are very much still here, very much still a part of our Earth, very much still deeply ingrained into our history. And a lot of things happened. The Orion Wars happened. After that, there was kind of a ceasefire on Earth. There was like a no contact order. We cannot have any race interfering. You go back to the ancient scripts of the Hindu text, and you'll see wars were happening here on Earth. A lot of that was happening because humans kept getting their genetics changed. The very first one was the Anunnaki. And like Neil said, the Anunnaki weren't just here to make slavery. Maybe the first group started off with needing workers or something, but the Anunnaki is a lot like human races. They have two sides. They have dualism. So some of the Anunnaki saw us as loved ones. Some of them saw us as glorified pets, and others didn't care for us. They didn't really care. So they fought, and they spent time going and then coming back after seeing what they had done to us thousands of years, tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 years later, coming back and saying, we didn't do well for you. We left you in a bad spot, and came back and gave us teachers. And other races who didn't like the reptilian archetype came in and said, no. You guys have reptilian in you. You're a humanoid species. You shouldn't have that much reptilian. So they would add theirs. And this is why we have Assyrian genetics. This is why we have Pleiadian genetics, Arcturian genetics. And again, this is just from what I've channeled with the multiple types of beings that I've channeled outside my main guides. They say that humans have 12 different genetic codes, and that came from 7 different iterations of genetic changes. And even though it wasn't just 7 times that beings had come to Earth and changed our DNA, there were like hundreds of different versions of humans in the early changes of genetics, but 7 different times DNA was changed with us. One of those was the very first with the reptilian genetics from the Alpha Draconians, and the second was Earth reptilians, which was placed in us at a later time, about the 3rd iteration. So you have these races like the Elohim, the Anunnaki. I'm trying to remember some of the other early ones, but then Pleiadian, Syrian, all of these types of beings came and changed genetic. Now, the reason I'm saying this and kind of explaining this is that it's more to it than what the eye sees. Most people say, oh, Alpha Draconian's bad. They do what they want. They have wars with other races, blah, blah, blah. So they're bad. But why do the Alpha Draconians, why are they the oldest race first? First, let's answer that question. This race of beings holds polarity. So there's different versions of Alpha Draconians, but the ones who still exist, who are very old, are here because they don't want to leave the physical incarnation cycle. They love the physical incarnation cycle. They love that they have an identity. They love that they're a part of something. They love who they are. And they know, because they are higher dimensional, because they're 6th density beings with wisdom that outlast any race that exists here, they understand that if they continue the cycle that they're on without stopping some flow of energy or without interfering with that cycle, they're going to go back to source. Well, if you go back to source, then you're not Alpha Draconian anymore. You're not a reptilian anymore. You'll be whatever you want to do when you get with the other consciousnesses and learn to create something new, a new incarnation cycle. And they don't want that. So they take their identity very personally. They love their identity. They love every member of their race. They would never do what humans do to each other, right? So for me, I can't blame this race of beings for not wanting to go back into a cycle where they lose themselves, because they have so much love attached to that energy. All right, so let's go back to the Earth reptilians. Now, Earth reptilians are always the ones that are tied into the cabal, the U.S. government, the world government, the black sites, all of these things. There might be some small level or component of truth to some of that, but the reptilians from Earth actually worked with humans early on. This is where we see the Earth reptilian art going all the way back. The ancient version of us, they lived on the same planet with us. They knew that we were staying there. They knew that we had the same genetics in us that they did them from the Alpha Draconians before we had theirs added on to us. So they appreciated us. Now, we all live on Earth, right? We as humans live on Earth. And what do we know about Earth? We know that if you live on Earth, you will have dualism. If you have dualism and you have a spectrum of possible experiences, what could happen? The first thing is you could be very loving, very connected to yourself, very connected to source, very connected to others, or you can be miserable, disconnected, not love anyone, be selfish, service to your own self and nothing else. And that is that, right? So they, as Earth reptilians, have the exact same thing. There are a small group of these beings who hate humans. They see us as tools. They see us as nothing more. But then you have those who love humans dearly. And that's also a smaller group. And then you have the ones who are kind of tired. Now, something happened back in our history where we did not do something right to the Earth reptilians. An ET came, maybe we chose this, I don't know. My wife, because she channels the Earth reptilians and Alpha Draconian beings, she is actually plugging into more of that information than I am. But something happened and it divided. It made reptilians say, you know what, whether you're on our planet or not, we're not going to deal with this. We're not going to help you. We're not going to take care of you. We're not going to interfere with what you're doing. So some of these reptilians still love us very dearly. Some of them don't care about us. They're just like indifferent, and others dislike us. And those that dislike us are the ones who work with other humans who also don't like other humans and play a game. But ultimately, we're all souls, right? All of us are experiencing this for a reason. So as an Earth being, as a human on Earth, I chose to come into a system where there's this dualistic sense of energy. And we had the nurturing, loving reptilian energy that brought us from the very, very start all the way to that time where humans had done something and there was a big divide in that energy, right? So we have these beings who are purely neutral. They don't care about us one way or the other. If humans went extinct, okay. If we didn't go extinct, okay, it doesn't matter. They're completely neutral. They don't really care. They respect that we're going to have a journey. They respect that we need to have our soul experience and our physical experience. And then you have those who really love us, these benevolent, very loving, very connected Earth reptilians that see humans as their planetary brother and sister. And then you have the bad, which is why I wanted to speak tonight. Out of all the topics, this is the one I really wanted to talk about. Nothing is black and white. My guide Treb is from Capella. Now, Capella, this is a system that's not really connected to Earth as far as the experience with genetics and connecting. His race came from Capella, and they were started by a race of beings who are actually future humans. And they're called the Nihal. They went to a star called Beta Leporis in a future timeline version of humans, just separated from Earth and started their own planetary energy, which is very common. This is going to happen once we get past the on-planet part of our journey as a race. We're going to go to the stars and planets that might not be inhabited. We will create on. Some that are inhabited will co-create on. But this is kind of a thing that will happen. And one of those probabilities, the Nihal were created from leaving Earth and going to this place. Now, what was the one thing that the Nihal wanted to do? They said, we know that we have trauma with reptilian energy. We know that our planet and our species has gone through great trauma. What can we do to help that? So what they did was they mixed their genetics with a reptilian animal genetics on one of the planets in the Capella star system. And that's where Treb's race came from. And they fostered this race. They took care of this race. They loved this race. The Nihal taught them everything and raised them up to be a type 1 highly benevolent race. Now, the type 1 energy is the non-interference, the seeing value and equality in all things, not seeing that you're good or bad, just accepting that all of us have a role. The type 2 are like humans. We classify stuff. We say this is good, this is bad, and also have a spectrum, just like humans. We can be very loving and very connected, or we can be very disconnected. So the type 2 comes with that spectrum. Treb's race is a type 1. And there are a lot of other reptilian races that are type 1. And there are also a ton of type 2 reptilians in our galaxy. Some of those are very benevolent and loving. Others are very neutral and don't really care either way. And I'm not saying that they're completely uninvolved with things, or that they don't care, as in, well, I don't just care about. I'm saying they perceive, the capacity for all beings to have their experience, but not to the point of a type 1. They still feel disconnected. They still hold preferences. They still might interfere if they feel like it's important, but they're more neutral, like a mid-benevolence type of type 2. And then there's the malevolent type 2 beings. Now, although the Alpha Draconians are considered more malevolent type 2 beings because they have gone to war with other races, they have created experiences that held only love for themselves and their own race and their hybrid races. They still, in my mind, are some of the most intelligent and some of the wisest beings out there. And although as a human, I can appreciate why humans have so much problem with that, looking at this race of beings who've started galactic wars, or have responded to galactic wars, depending on what your perspective is there. I can understand why they want to exist in a universe physically and be as they are. I can understand because I'm pretty attached to my own personality as a human. I'm pretty attached to being Rob, the human on Earth who lives in Michigan, who happens to channel all these things, being a father to my 2 kids, loving them with all of my heart. I can understand the attachment to that. So although they're reptilian, it humanizes them in my own eyes very much. So I wanted to share this perspective. I think it's important.
Mm-hmm. Amazing share, Rob. Thank you so much, brother. And there's just so much, so well put together and articulated, communicated. Truly appreciate it all. And I was texting with Bridget just now, actually. I think we should have a separate interview with you and go deeper into this if you're open to that.
Yeah,
Bridget wants to tag team an interview. It'll be we'll be throwing questions at you. I just want to say one thing first. That you talk about neutrality, and a lot of times when it comes up with the word neutrality, as you shared, that it doesn't mean you're not involved, or doesn't mean that you don't care, because I would say instead of saying positive and negative in some aspects, I like to say harmonious and disharmonic, and instead of talking about dimensions as hierarchy, because that's a Kali Yuga theme, I like to call it harmonic dimensions compared to the disharmonic dimensions. And I feel the universe in general has equanimity. It wants to be neutral, and the equanimity always tends to move towards harmony, right? And harmony is when we all live in peace. So I feel neutrality tends to kind of put its foot in the positive range, just because you can have a better way of understanding everything and interacting with the universe when you're at that level.
I agree, and this is something that both Ardif and Trep, the 2 closest guys to me, that's how they exist. They are type 1. They see the validity in all things. Just by being in their proximity, it's helped me in my life. When 2019, 2020 came around and the whole world was fighting with each other and angry at each other, I for the first time was able to look and say, hey guys, we're all in this together. We love each other. You can hold different perspectives and coexist together. So neutrality has a beautiful power and a great healing capacity.
Exactly. Rob, thank you so much, brother, for jumping on and sharing your wisdom, insight. And I just gotta say again, man, I'm just now I'm seeing you because we've been texting. I'm really happy we're reconnected, brother. It means a lot to me.
Me too, brother. It's been a long time. I really love you, and I'm glad you're still doing this important work to share this information with people. Thank you for having me on, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Okay, talk soon. All right, everybody. So let's get into our next guest, and we're going to have Bridget Renee Holiday, and then we're going to close out with Vox. And again, everybody, Bridget and Vox have around 15 minutes each. So extremely excited. I'm excited to introduce everybody today. I'm excited with Bridget because Bridget and myself over the last 2 years our relationship has been growing and becoming even more connected, and we have a lot of similarities in the direction that we want to go and information we want to convey to the world when it comes to this topic. And I actually think it was during my regression. Many of you probably seen my dragon presentation. That regression was the one that led me to here. I'll show you a slide from there tomorrow. And during that presentation, or that regression, I think is when I told Bridget, yeah, I remember when the dragons wanted me to convey the information of galactic racism or galactic speciesism, and us coming to coming to a place where we can truly love the other and see the reflection in the other and reconcile that within ourselves. And so as soon as that was over, I told Bridget that that's what I feel like I need to do, and she was like 100% down for it. And it's a part of a huge mission. Bridget's mission is massive, as I feel all of us are here. But a huge part of her mission is to bring this information in the way that we're conveying it over the next 3 days. And it's just been amazing connecting with Bridget and becoming good friends with her and having her on many events. She's an all-star on Portal to Ascension. So Bridget Renee Holiday is a Starseed channel, multidimensional medium, and galactic unity ambassador. She holds frequencies of unity consciousness and anchors them into human experience. Her star lineage is Pleiadian, Sirian, Arcturian, Lyran, Andromedan, and Aurora, among others. She is an Ascension catalyst specialist of the Galactic Councils of Light. Her mission includes normalizing the conversations and perceptions around interdimensional, extradimensional, ultradimensional, and extraterrestrial beings. So everybody, join me in welcoming on Bridget Renee Holiday. Hey, Bridget.
I'm going to put my glasses on. I'm still doing that. I'm so happy to be here. First of all, Laurenette and Rob and you, Neil. This has been such a joy already, and I'm so excited for what's to come. You guys, it's going to be amazing. We are so ready for this next step in our own evolution of consciousness. And this is how we become part of the galactic culture, right? So taking these steps in this way just feels so important, Neil. And I'm just always so grateful for you, brother. And
I know, it does feel like that. So, okay, go ahead and take it away, Bridget.
I just want to invite everyone to sort of just take a moment, because a lot of information has come through. Take everything that you know or that you think you know about reptilians and just hold it loosely. Because what I want to invite you to do is dive into the heart space as I tell these stories. So I've been consciousness traveling since I was a teenager, and it's very similar to astral projection. Some of you probably have already heard me talk about this. So I've been all over the place. But after my 2 contact experiences, my starseed awakening, those places that I've spent a lot of time in, lots of different planets, lots of different dimensions, what I would see before my starseed awakening contact experiences that continued, of course, were dragons everywhere, right? And in Neil's, had a close connection with dragons, like all of us do. And in Neil's session, I asked them Neil, can I say this? I don't remember if you've said this yet.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I just want to make sure you weren't going to deliver this later. I asked them a very important question. And what was wild to me about how they answered was you could almost, it was so palpable. You could feel the hesitation in answering to this name that I know them to be, because of the identifications and all of the frequencies that have been placed upon it on Earth. And my question was to the dragons, which so many people love on Earth, right? Are you called Alpha Draconians? And they paused and said yes. And for me, the pause was everything. You could feel just like that feeling of, I don't even want to identify with that label because of the frequencies that are connected to it from humans, right, on Earth and what we've put into it. But what I want to say, my team, I channel. I've been channeling my whole life. what I want to say is my Soul Team Collective, which is what I call Guides Plus, right? What we all have, has been saying for so long that it is time to let the dark out of their contracts. I got a huge booming, like it's almost like an angel voice booming announcement. I get these periodically and I find them hilarious, but it was like, it is time to let the dark out of their contracts. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Right. I'm like, walking through my dining room as it happened, right? Many years ago. And they were like, they have played the roles for long enough. It is time for humanity to let them out of their contracts. And when I get those messages, it's an indication for me to go within myself and see where I'm doing whatever that is. And then when the time is right, I start saying it to the world, right? I'm in whatever form that comes out. And when I get that message to, okay, now it's time to, announce that. And I feel like there's this element that has been talked about by everyone here so far that we often forget. We speak in they and them. And really, it's an us thing. These beings share soul streams with us. We have the same soul, right, as them. Lots of us hold, the human race holds reptilian energetic DNA. This is just a thing, right? And there's so many different races and species all around the universe, not just in our galaxy. When you start to travel and you start to access your soul knowingness of all of your lives and expressions, whether they're in physicality or not, you probably have some form of reptilian somewhere in that, we'll call it heritage, right? So what I find interesting is we have such a deep emotional wound with it. And I'm not going to go so deep on that because I know we're doing that in a couple of days. But I think if we're feeling that resonance with them all being bad guys, that it's important to look at that. It's important to look at why. Is it because the stories you've heard have only been about negative reptilians? That is something, I'm on a number of social media apps, and that is something that I've encountered a lot, where people are only sharing these stories that are not good, right? Don't feel good to humans. But I think it's really important to look at that. Look at the core of that, and then really drop into your heart space and feel. Use that discernment that we all have innately. Does it really feel like every reptilian is negative, right? I agree 100% with Rob. I have experienced, and with everybody that has spoken today, I have experienced many reptilians of all different races and species, right? Because they're not all the same. And we could talk, I believe Lauren was talking about the Nagas, it sounded like earlier. And there's so many different, like their physical appearances are different, how they express is different. And I've experienced and encountered so many beings who have a smaller emotional body than we do, but they still have so much pure love light within them. And I think, when Neil and I were talking in his session, I was like, it's really just this tiny percentage. We both have that knowingness. It's a really small percentage of reptilians that have such a sort of a reputation of deep aggression, right? And this is something that plays the contrast within this galactic expression and has. But a lot of these things that people talk about in today's time, these things are so old. Like the galactic wars are ancient, and you can focus in on them because all time exists in the now. There's no past, present, or future. So if your consciousness is tapping into something because that's what you're feeling on the inside in some way, shape, or form, or that's what you're observing in the world, that's the information you're going to tap into, right? You have the ability to, at least, right? Is to tap into those wars. I don't perceive galactic wars happening right now. And a lot of people I know don't perceive that either. But there are so many people that do. I need to do a clearing real quick. Hold on 1 second. Let me mute. People are working on their throat chakras and speaking their truths. Hold on 1 second. Woo! Woo, okay. We might do a throat chakra clearing, or anyone that wants to say yes to having your throat chakra cleared, I'll call in the collective healing teams right now to do a thorough throat chakra clearing and harmonization of all the chakras from the High Self Collective. Perfect. So anyone that wants to receive it can just say, I receive. So what I want to say, really, I think my entire purpose of speaking on reptilians and speaking on the variety and the diversity of reptilian races and species that I've encountered and that I've had connection with in one way or another is just to remind us that things aren't black and white, right? Especially within our galactic family. But where we put our attention and focus grows because we're infinite creator beings, right? And so if we perpetuate these stories and we don't allow for anything different to happen, and we continue in this way, we're holding ourselves in suffering. Because I can guarantee you that there are, of that small percentage of reptilians who are playing the roles of the contrast within this galactic experience, this human experience with us and many others. I can guarantee you they're not holding themselves in suffering in the same angles as we are. And we come to Earth. One of the big things about the human Earth experience is that we work through things that have been happening all across the timelines, right? All across the generations of galactic expression, whether that be physical or cosmic or ethereal, right? So all the way across, we work through those things here. We allow, because we have such ingenuity and the way that the human experience expresses through all of the genetics, it has this ability to really create masterpieces energetically, frequency-wise, within the human expression. And so with that, we bring in new ways that now emanate out into the greater collective, right? So my invitation to every single person here is, if you have a fear of reptilians, dive deep and look at it. Look at why. Speciesism is the same sort of archetype as racism on this planet. It's the same energetic frequencies, right? So if there are particular beings that you feel that way about, that are galactic, cosmic, or ethereal, it's important to do a deep dive and look at that. Was there trauma? Bring in those lives and expressions. There are a million different self-hypnosis things that you can do online. You have a lot of us out here that are holding it up as quantum hypnotherapists and hypnosis practitioners. And we are ready to work with you. So, there are plenty of ways to go about this. If you feel like you would like a bit more hand-holding, find people like me. If you want to do it yourself, I am all about doing our own inner work. So do that as well. But look at the core of where that comes from. Pull that information up and do it in a way where it feels neutral, where you can observe it and observe the entirety of it, and then ask questions about how that connects to other lives and expressions, and how that connects to your human expression, this one right here, where we're shifting the way what it means to be human, right? In this life, we're starting that shift. And my suggestion is just to really look at all of it, because those threads are part of the old paradigm, right? And it doesn't mean they're necessarily bad or good or anything, but there are other opportunities for our expansion now. Our entirely new blueprints within us that have been activated that we can now move into. It's like lighting up layers of ourselves, right? And to move through this period of I don't know what we want to call it, this period on the human timeline, we can choose grace and ease, we can choose suffering, right? Just because something happened a long time ago or even 3 weeks ago does not mean we need to carry it around with us, right? We can set that down and choose in this now moment the type of expression we want and how we want to connect with other beings. And so it is so, so, so important for us to recognize that sovereignty and that choice in this now moment, especially with things that we're being triggered with. Lots of stories are coming out. You know, I've heard recently some really intense stories about memory access that someone had with reptilians. My question is, when, right? When did that was that memory accessed, and why? Was it access to, you know, bring fear into the world, or was it access to bring healing to everyone involved in that and bring awareness to the depth of duality that we play in wherever we are, whether we're on Earth or in other, you know, third, fourth, right, expressions? There's going to be a depth of duality. Earth has a really intense, you know, ability to play in the dualistic sides of polarity. But what are these stories here for? What are they calling out of us? Are they calling us into action? Are they calling us into inner work? Are they calling us into, you know, a deeper understanding, so to speak, of who we are at all of the layers of our expression and how our soul is moving through existence? I will say I've had some past lives that were human that blew my mind, right? That I was like, how could I be that dark of a being? What is telling us that we don't have that in the galactic as well? And how can we bring more healing to this? And if it really is time, as my team suggested, or whoever gives me those giant announcements suggested, to let the dark out of their contracts, perhaps this healing and this depth of healing that we get to be a part of right now, perhaps that is part of what enables the permission slip that these beings will gift themselves through their own evolution of soul experience. So I don't know. I just want to say, Neil, I don't know how long I've been talking. I feel like it's been a while, but I just want to say my invitation is just to go deeper into the fear, go deeper into the root of the core of these stories, and look within ourselves. But also, as we're doing that deep dive, where are we holding similar trauma in this human expression as was experienced in these other galactic expressions, right? And where can we bring in a deeper healing and forgiveness and remember the unity that we all are? So yeah, I think that's where I land with this one, Neil.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bridget. And what you shared about, that's the same, like, it's just like we're aspects of each other communicating this, you know what I mean? Like everything that you're saying is just resonates so deeply. And the way you put it, that your question is, did we come in here because of the fear, or did this happen to us because of the fear, or did this happen to us because of the healing, right? And ultimately, I mean, I feel you feel it's probably the healing, right? Because without this reflection, we don't really get to see the depths of what we are capable of on that level. And like the thing that I like to say is that darkness teaches us the beauty of the light, right? And if you have complete remembrance, the darkness doesn't teach you the beauty of the light because you remember the light. But when you come and you forget, the contrast and duality is like the necessary stepping stones to get there, which is crazy because when you have the frequency, the range of frequency you experience, how do you reconcile the crazy atrocities, like the hardcore atrocities that happen on the planet as a part of that? But I guess that's also part of the free will experience, right? If Source wanted to experience itself infinitely, does that include the depths of the darkness?
Yeah, and I feel like we're doing similar things to ourselves here. So if we want to move out of these patterns with humans on Earth, it's also helpful. Not everyone is going to be focused initially on their galactic connections. But if you are, right? I'm like, if you are, there is a 0 point into the unity field, right? So when we find those common frequencies within us, those frequencies that we're holding of those archetypical sort of experiences and expressions within this life, like where am I holding the frequency of racism? Where am I holding the frequency of other than separation, right? Which is what racism is, right? Where am I holding the frequency of war? When we start removing those and weeding that out, then that changes the landscape of what it means to be human on earth even more, right? Because we're diffusing those frequencies and then we're infusing those that we're choosing in the now instead, right? So, and I feel like this whole thing is so connected. Like our galactic lives and expressions are so connected to the earth experiences that we're having now in this moment. There's not a separation. And when we can see that interconnected, that web that is woven, that's when we can really start to affect change on a conscious level in our life, but also all of the lives and expressions that we have. So yeah.
Quite literal. I mean, we're now figuring out that everything is a literal reflection of the subatomic particle within us, right? And so it's not just a metaphor that the outside world's a reflection. There's this inner chaos that's a beautiful chaos, really. It's just this inner expression that's reflecting outside of us. And that's why everything that we do in order to get disclosure and all that stuff always leads to the inner work. It always leads into where do we hold those frequencies? Where do we hold that within us? How do we release it? You know, before you go, we have a good question here that kind of talks about that. Karen is asking, do we need to know what happened in order to let go of it?
No, sometimes yes, sometimes no. What's important is to know your intuitional yes and no, right? And what that feels like in your body. And you can find, I actually just put an Instagram, I think I did an Instagram video on that recently. So just go there and find that one. But what's important is to know that. And I will say as I do beyond quantum healing hypnosis, right? I'm a hypnotherapist. I would say a lot of the healing we do is not that sort of deep dive that was happening 5 years ago, 7 years ago. When it comes to those, it's like the high self is bringing everyone to these amazing lives that tell the story. But the healing happens so instantaneously when you hold the intention and the knowingness that you are the 0 point within the unity field. So everything you heal within you, your intention is that it is immediately disseminated to every other being that it's appropriate for, right? And you'll feel that those releases happen. I mean, Neil can tell you feel the release when it happens, right? And if you've already had one of those releases, you'll know. And that area within your DNA, really, that's sort of permeated everything in your physicality, that will shift. You can feel that lightness of being that happens as you do the deep healing with the galactic, cosmic, and ethereal, but also with the earth, the earth connection to all of that. And boy, I'm using my hands a lot tonight, Neil.
Thank you so much. And it's just so good doing these things with you. I really feel like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing in order to bring that healing energy here. So I just love you. Thank you for everything. And thank you for inspiring me.
Thank you for inspiring me and having me on this with you and all of these beautiful beings. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being part of Portal to Ascension family and for doing all of this inner work and for striving to really remember who you are on such deep levels. This is so important for this moment of humanity's evolution and consciousness. So I just want to thank you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's a big
Thank
deal.
you, Bridget. Okay, see you tomorrow.
Okay, love you.
I agree 100%. This is the next level, really. It's the integration of the darkness. And this year is the year of the dragon, right? We did the dragon conference last year. We're doing another one this year. And guess what next year is, guys? Go ahead and tell me in the chat if you know what next year is. Don't Google it, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start introducing Vox, but I want to see if you guys know, because it's in alignment with this right here. And next year, we're going to be doing a conference. It's going to be shifting from the Dragon Conference, the Year of Dragon, to the energy of next year. And we don't have anybody responding, so I'm going to tell you, next year is the Chinese Year of the Snake. Okay, it's the reptilian year, and which is interesting because it's been the Dragon Year. Yep, exactly. The Year of the Snake, the Dragon Year, and the Serpent Year. And the shadow work is deep right now, guys. Like, it's manifesting hardcore. We have the individual shadow that we're working through. We have the collective shadow that the Earth world is working through as well. And so the dragon energy is like that fiery force, just bringing it to the surface, no holding back. You can even get literal with it, with the underground dragons, the ones that live underground, coming from the underground, the surface, to the surface, bringing the fire to the surface. And then what happens next year? The Year of the Snake, the time to shed the old ways, shed the shadow, move on. I forget who said it recently. It might have been Bridget. That we're not becoming something else. We're just shedding so that we can really see what has always been underneath us in the first place. And that's what this, serpent energy can be. We can polarize it and utilize these archetypes in these ways that benefit our evolution. So let's get into our next and our final panelist for today. Another individual I'm extremely excited to be bringing on. And Vox Angeles has been a really good friend and close colleague since 2011. I'm at loss for words to explain the depth of the connection that we've had and how many times we've worked together and had her on Portal to Ascension. And at this point, I'm happy to say that every live conference we've done in the US, which is, I think we've done like 7 or something like that now, Vox has been a part of it. And we also bring her onto many of the events. She's part of the Ultimate Star Beings Conference. This year, she's going to be doing an event on Yeshua. She's going to be part of a Dragons Conference. And what Vox brings, usually we have her on this platform, and you've probably seen her bringing her soundscapes of vocal alchemy. But she also has a depth of awareness, receiving downloads from different beings, dragon beings, even had interactions with a reptilian being before. So today, we're going to be speaking about she's going to be telling us about her experience with connecting with this reptilian being. And then we're going to close out today because for me, it's important for us to kind of use this event as a funnel where we're learning all this information, going through it, but then going through the experience of releasing. And Karen, you're saying, how do we release? Can we release without knowing? Well, that's what we're here to do. We're expressing information, but just through the breath, through the frequency, through the intention, we can release, right? So we're going to close out with that frequency today. So Vox Angeles, also known as Phyllis Douglas, is a visionary author, speaker, invocational sound artist, spiritual medium, and healer, and a direct embodied conduit for the consciousness of the Elohim. Surrounded by angels since she was a little girl, she's always experienced them as guides, teachers, and protectors. Working alongside the Elohim, she receives and transcribes and emanates the highest heavenly sound signatures of sacred design and creation. She sings, speaks, writes, and transmits the frequency encoded language of the Elohim, infinite language of God's light, into sound, energy, and etheric geometric constructs of creation that she then shifts and manipulates to manifest change. Elohim refers to her a transcendent bridge and divine vessel capable of facilitating states of awareness and consciousness above and beyond the range of normal or merely physical human experience. So everybody, join me in welcoming back to Portal to Ascension, Vox Angeles. Hey, Vox.
Oh my God, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, I just had to, oops. My
Your camera's just closed. Hopefully it's not on my end. Look, let's get some comments in the chat. Can you see Vox's camera, or is it frozen for you?
Is it back?
Let me try removing you. Okay, let's see. No, camera's not working.
My camera doesn't seem to like. Am I back again?
Well, we hear your voice, but we don't see you.
Okay, well, I guess you can't see me. At least you can hear me. For some reason, with Chrome and StreamYard, the other, I don't know, my other stuff wasn't working. It kept disconnecting. It's talking about the internet connection, but my interconnection's fine. So, unfortunately, I can see myself. So
let's just go with your voice if you're okay with that.
yeah, that is fine.
And I'll see if I can find some visuals so we can have like floating around while you're. All right, go for it.
Try one more time and see if I show up. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing myself on my end, but it's not. I see an image, but it's not showing, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, for some reason my camera, it's asking me to restart my browser, but I can't do that. Okay, so in listening to everything that everyone was saying, it's very interesting because there's a lot of cross correlations. And so Neil had asked me just to share a circumstance that I'd had in the past, and which is still, the relationship is actually still going on periodically. But many years ago, I had a being that had come to me during a meditation. And he was still there after the meditation. And through our discussion, I found out that he was reptilian. And at the time, I didn't have any preconceived notions about, the reptilians, and who they were, or, what they were thought of. But we had a relationship for what was about 3 years that he would just kind of pop in and we would have a discussion. And I have a lot of our discussions that I actually had written out. And I knew that, I was kind of like, am I going crazy? Because here I am talking to this being, and I could see him quite clearly. He did bring me up onto, he was a member of, or is a member of a galactic federation at that time. And he brought me up on the ship and showed me around a little bit. And he, I thought, was just the most beautiful and striking being that I have ever had the pleasure to meet and just to witness. He was very, very tall. He had on kind of a series of robes, but his flesh was just the most gorgeous labradorite kind of essence. And it looked just like a labradorite stone. So when he would move, you would see like the opalescent reflections. And so for a time, he gave me these messages, which I typed out. But one of the key things, which now that I don't have a camera, it's very strange, I can't show you. He had me kind of, it was almost like automatic drawing that he would we spoke telepathically. And there would be an image, the construction of an image in my mind, and then I would just draw it out. And so I do have an image of him that kind of like in relief that he had given me. And the key messages during that 3-year period of time were really about how he was one of the good guys, one of the people that's really out there to help humanity with our awakening, our ascension, and the ascension of the planet and so forth. And I had been at, I'm a healer, seer, and so forth, and I had been at a shamanic gathering, and he popped up, and he was in the corner, he was listening, and then he asked if he could speak to the group through me, and so I spoke, and one of the things that I was so excited about was I was explaining what he looked like, and afterwards, one of the other participants came up and said, "Oh my God, I could see him. He's gorgeous." So that was really one of those key things that was like, okay, I'm not going crazy. I am seeing him. And not to say that I don't see beings, I do. But this was just kind of one of those, a beautiful relationship was building at the time until I had a conversation with someone within another group, and I was telling them about the fact that I had these meetings with this reptilian for quite some time. And I told her about him, and she just laid into me, we were talking about how most people believe, or they propagate this collective fear of negativity surrounding the reptilians. And, you know, as she was telling me about I should be afraid of them and all of that, I should not be in this relationship. They can do this, they can do that. They're in our government. It was like this whole thing. And I told her, well, I don't feel that from him. That's, you know, I don't sense that in any way, shape, or form. So what happened was the next time that I saw him, it was a couple weeks later, and he popped in and he said, what is different? And I said, what do you mean? He said, you are in fear. And I was kind of like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? And he said, no, you fear me. Why? And so I told him about this encounter that I had had with this woman that was telling me all of these stories that you hear. You know, reptilians are evil, reptilians do this and that, reptilians can take over your body, and, you know, all of this stuff. And so he looked at me and he said, would you answer a question? And I was like, yes. He said, are all Muslims terrorists? And I kind of looked at him, I went, no. And you know, and then I got it. But I have all of these images, and I knew him to just be this beautiful and kind-hearted and caring being. And I could ask any questions, and he would provide these answers. And so then he was gone for quite a while, and he said that he would be back. And apparently before he actually made himself known, he had popped in, and I realized that I could sense his energetic signature, his frequency, but I didn't know at that time what it was. But it had been him. And so he left for a time. He popped in periodically. He said that he was keeping track of me and what I was doing, and he was telling me, you know, that, you know, my evolutionary process, my spiritual work and so forth was right on track, and all of this. And then the last time that we really had a key conversation was it was January 2021. And at that time, when he came in, I had started to write about him. And so he was telling me kind of what to write. And that began that I'm a corporeal being communicating telepathically. I am a being that resides outside of your immediate solar system. And I'm a member of, at that time he said, I'm a member of the intergalactic tribunal. We are at war. So there, at that time, there was this war going on. And I know Bridget had mentioned, you know, I don't see that in my field. And it's really interesting. I see both. I could sense that, but it wasn't like I had a direct connection to it until fairly recently. And I can mention what I do in that sense. But at that time, he was saying, you know, it was really the reason that they were coming was it was a call to humanity to step into action at the time. And what he wanted people to know is that he was saying, you, my infinite one, are recognizing the urgency through how you're feeling in the body and the unrequited thoughts that flow through your mind unbidden. You have the ability to connect and work with the ultrasphere, the container within a container within a container. You pierce the veil of illusion and recognize the mapping of the universe within your subconscious where the information resides. It's accessible when needed and unavailable when it is not. Realize that within is without, and that you are as big as the universe and beyond, and you can touch all things. Understand this. The omnipresence is you, and you are the omnipresence. So there were discussions then at that time where he discussed a lot about portals and gateways, and what he also called multidimensional corridors that exist in great numbers from the highest level of what he terms as the Godhead at the universal source and down through all created universes, all dimensions, all sublevels of each dimension, down to the tiniest particle. And he was saying we have the ability to access those portals and gateways, those multidimensional corridors, but as well that they exist within us. And that is how he was saying that they were able to get from one part of the universe to the other and so forth. That's how they could travel. And he said that some portals are used for stepping down the frequency of source energy, while others are used for traveling between dimensions, planets, solar systems, galaxies, and universes. So that was kind of the discussion that we were having at that time. And so the last time that I saw him was actually about 3 weeks ago. He came in and said he had much more to share because of things that were happening and some of the work that I am doing. And I have actually been doing just briefly some work because I buy. One of the things is I'm a conduit for Elohim, and I also channel and so forth. But as a conduit for the consciousness of Elohim, they are able to work with me in pretty significant ways because I can't bilocate on my own, but they will bilocate me to certain areas of the world with the gifts that I have and the things that I do to do my work, to do what is required or requested of me at that time. And one of the key things is, and I'll just say one of the recent breakouts and one of the recent wars to break out, part of that was over actually one of the gateways. And I was actually bilocated out and fighting to keep that closed. So there's a number of things that are happening, and the reason that I kind of share that. And so that was one of 4 or 5 missions, I call it, that I did, and then I kind of pulled back from doing that. I don't need to step into that anymore. And I guess that is really about it. I think the key thing was really just that statement about, I just thought was so profound in the moment, and I still do, just making that analogy that are all Muslims terrorists? I mean, that kind of chalks it up really right there, because the answer, of course, is no, right? But I can't show you any of the images and so forth I have since my camera is not working. Did you have anything at all to say about that, Neil?
No, just beautiful share. Thank you for sharing that. I would love for you just to lead us in closing out this experience today. From a safe, we'll just close it with whatever you're thinking right now. But just what we're just speaking about here, the diversity throughout the cosmos, and just what you said about judging one group of people within a collective group of people. I mean, that's just very limited, And a lot of times it seems that we have a kind of trauma with a group of people, let's say with terrorism, and then correlate, well, you're terrorist because of these reasons, therefore everybody else that is connected to that Islam must also be this. Some people have done that, right? So it's kind of like, instead of coming from the wound and the trigger and reacting, it's taking a step back to really understand the bigger picture and not have to blame. So that's what I got from what you were sharing.
Yes, beautiful. So actually Ezekiel is here right now, and I'm sorry I don't have my whole setup, so I don't have the backtrack on all of the magical stuff that happens, but what I do want to share is just a cappella what Ezekiel, and I'm sorry, yeah, his name is Ezekiel, or that's the name that he's given me, because at the time he said that I would not be able to pronounce his real name. And he told me what his real name was. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So he chose the name Ezekiel from Ezekiel in the Bible, because he said that Ezekiel in the Bible was a good match for his countenance. All right. So he wants me to share what he's calling wedded union. And that is the divine union of masculine, feminine. And that's one of the things that's happening right now, is that wedded union within all things. So hopefully this will sound okay. Tu eres para sundres pake, mbotro spiria mata sutrim minjatra, que eres tutrum. Astu queria macere sund, ndras pocutrim. Noture mondre spirum, andaire, totore stot genderindere, no cure no, macerenen, isotroenot meririm, anda sorere no, brisot merir, nelotris porenon, merondresir, nerientur, merondresir, andare tore no, monotre spiriton, amere tore torandar, hene torandane sur, inotres putone, enotres putrenere no, amatres tirie han, amatres tirie handetur, ore siriam handetur, ore siriam ton, andarero, andarero tore, sicurende toramon, are tore, sicreriande tore non, are ticre, dotore non discin geresut, de tore non andere sindro. Che basura matros pichandora, anarieditun, kipituras papa andres tiram, and de tore kirian non, cupocia chundres pichandore kicham, amare de kun, heto cureson de no, potitum. And Berika Spirit Motoris Pichundre. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Beautiful, Vox. Thank you so much for sharing. Love you so much. Thank you.
Love you too.
Okay, we'll talk soon.
Bye.
And there we have it. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. And I hope you enjoyed that. I really did too. And it went actually, I thought it would be like 40 minutes to an hour, but we went deep. There's a lot of information here. And I feel today was the stories, the journeys, the diversity of the experience of the serpentine energy throughout the cosmos. And then tomorrow we're going to be coming back the same time. So hope to see you guys again, everybody on YouTube, people in the StreamYard room. If you are new to Portal to Ascension or have not come to, not on our newsletter, you can go to portaltoascension.org, sign up there. You get hundreds of hours of free presentations. Go ahead and sign up, and you'll also get access to the newsletter. Tomorrow we're back with the Scars of Orion. It's going to be very, very interesting because the Orion Wars and the Orion constellation is, there's so much that occurred there that is connected to our experience on Earth right now. So when we're speaking about that, and a lot of times, you hear about the Lyrians, Pleiadians, Sirians. Not too often do you talk about the Orions, and which is why we're doing a conference in March of next year called the Orion Conference, which is going to go even deeper into it. We're going to talk about the scars of Orion and get to a point of what actually occurred and what the place looks like now. And I'll start out with my introduction again, and this is going to be another part of Geraldine Orozco's regression with me and Bridget Renee Holiday, where I came to a realization of my life on Orion as well. We'll start out with that. And then on the third day, we're going to do Reptilians and the shadow work. And that will be the day where we really go deep, and we'll have some workshop energy going on. We'll do some meditation, some breath work and releasing, and permeate this frequency throughout the cosmos. Let your friends and family know if they want to tune into this, because it'll be really cool if in 2 days from now, when we do that meditation, we have as many people as possible sending out that frequency frequency. I think I combined two words there. Frequency of harmony throughout the cosmos, so that we can heal from these traumas and move into the next dimension. Because we can't take our baggage with us, guys. You know, we got to leave this baggage here, process it, and then we can move forward. So love you all so much. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to all the panelists, to Vox, Bridget, to Rob, and to Lanette. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a beautiful rest of your day.